Welcome everyone to this week's Fashion Means Business Fashion Talks. It's with great pleasure that I welcome Rohil Kumar, a graduate from the Fashion Business School, London College of Fashion, who graduated in 2015 and then went on to establish the hugely successful streetwear brand Night Addict. So thank you, Rohil, very much for joining us today. It means a lot to us and the students for you to come and welcome and share your experience of having set up your brands. I think what would be really nice to sort of set the context would be if you could just give a brief introduction to yourself and your sort of journey up until sort of setting up the brand, I suppose.
Yeah, cool. Obviously, firstly, just want to thank you, make a huge thanks to LCF for having me today, and thanks to everyone here who's attending. And it really is an honor to speak to you all, and really nice to have reconnected with you, Hannah, my old tutor. I think the best way to really present would be in like a rough timeline. So my name's Rohil Kumar. I was born in Manchester and studied at Manchester Grammar School for Boys. Grew up in the clothing industry, so my ambition was always to study some kind of fashion course, ideally business related. Fashion management was perfect for me at LCF. Having gone to quite a competitive all boys school, fashion wasn't really at the forefront of our education at all. I was, in fact, to be honest, the only person to ever apply to LCF in the school's history. And just went completely against the grain of all my peers studying economics or politics. Loved my time at LCF. It was a huge step in the right direction for me. The course was perfect. Being part of such a prestigious college obviously opened up my mind to the world of fashion, and living in central London, studying between High Holborn and Oxford Circus was just amazing. Really felt like I was at the center of the UK's fashion industry. Me as a person, generally, I've kind of always been quite a creative person. I studied 2 art GCSEs, followed by fine art at A-level, and always entered art competitions, applied for courses. So for that particular reason, doing like a more management course was just perfect for me. Wanted to understand the more business side of things. Can still remember doing most of our studies on the UK High Street, working with Moss Brothers, working at Liberty Department Store. It's really amazing the connections you can get through LCF. So post LCF, graduated in 2015, applied to do an internship at Li & Fung, which was a company, basically a global giant company that acquires companies all over the world. So the new co that was founded was called Global Brands Group. It was based in New York, consisted of about 8 companies that were all kind of merged together. And I worked within the sort of pajama department, licensed pajama department, which at the time was turning over about $650 million. I worked within all the departments, really to get a full understanding of the business. I think my time there can be summarized with one quick story. It was highlighted with a meeting I had with Walmart, where we just sat in a meeting, very normal, just felt like a normal day-to-day meeting. And, at the time, Frozen was really a bit of a buzzword. It was like the hottest license at that time, and it had taken the world by storm. And I just sat and observed one of the buyers basically ordering 1 million units per SKU across, tons of styles. I think in that 2-hour-long meeting, she paced must be over 25 to 40 million units of just pajamas. So obviously that just opened up my world of like retail, and obviously just the power of wholesaling. Despite learning a lot about the American market whilst I was there, I knew that it would just benefit me massively when I came back to the UK.
That's brilliant, and it's so very brave of you to sort of take the leap and go against the sort of norm of your peers and actually opt for a career in fashion, well, a degree in fashion, which then led on to career in fashion. So maybe tell us a little bit how you went from frozen pajamas to streetwear brand Night Addict.
Yeah, so after my time in New York, and obviously after the degree at uni, I really did feel like I gained a lot of industry experience, enough so to join my family business. So I moved back to Manchester and started working at Whispering Smith in 2016. The company was founded by my grandfather in '67 and since has been taken over by my dad and my uncle. The best way really to describe a Whispering Smith is as the secret supplier to the high street. We design, manufacture, import, warehouse and wholesale fashion stock to retailers and e-tailers across the world. Sometimes as white labels, sometimes as branded. I think it was actually a term we learned at uni, which was concept to carrier bag, which is like if anyone ever asks me about what we do, that's kind of what I say. Teams of designers and imports, etc. So every single process along the supply chain. So I spent about a year in the deep end, really working there, working with every department in the company, understanding every clog to the machine. To understand like the selling side of the business, I was attending trade shows in Europe, Berlin, Paris, Copenhagen. And then on the buying side, I was traveling to places like Bangladesh, China, India, Turkey, sourcing fabrics and dealing with factories directly. And I think just in that year alone, I just embraced every aspect of our industry as a whole, dived in head first. And then kind of in the background of all of this, I'd been working on some sketches about, launching a brand basically within our company. Whilst our company supplied fast fashion retailers, the DNA of the product was quite commercial, and my sort of visions of apparel and kind of even the clothing I was mainly influenced by, what I was wearing was completely by that emergence of streetwear. I think around 2014, 15, even when I was at uni, there was this sort of boom. I think it's quite important to touch upon really, because there was brands like Off-White, KTZ, Amiri, even Givenchy at the time had a creative director that was doing a lot of streetwear styling. It kind of just emerged out of nowhere. And I remember even at the time being shocked and just thinking how much of a juxtaposition it was that Selfridges started stocking Nike apparel. I mean, now most people will think, oh, that's normal. Like I'm assuming most students, be like, oh, well, of course they would. But really back then, department stores at high level luxury were not stocking streetwear brands at all. So that kind of inspired me to kind of strike while the iron's hot. And I basically put together this collection. The left pictures show literally just like a rail of samples, which is what it was. It was spring, summer 17. I kind of working for Whispering Smith had access to designers and factories, and in the background kind of just put together around 30 styles, mainly tracksuits and t-shirts. And I mean, you can see like I styled it with some Yeezy shoes, which at the time were like the hype trainer. I just designed this like quick collection of streetwear basically around it. And there was a meeting happening with ASOS for our main range. And as she was leaving, I just kind of like dipped my head in and just asked for 5 minutes of time of her time. And also just having learnt about price point, about delivery dates, etc. I knew that the prices would fit into their budgets, and fundamentally it was really those 5-10 minutes that I spent with a buyer that kind of founded Night Addict, and that was really the start. So following on from this, it was a wholesale model to begin with, but I had a platform to start building the brand. During our first sell-through meeting, I was told the brand had launched super successfully. It was the second best-selling brand in streetwear. And it was at kind of that point that I really gained a lot of confidence in what I was doing. And before I knew it, we were participating in pop-up shops. We had our own showroom. We were in Top Man Oxford Circus. And it was just a very quick kind of cycle that just happened. And, and the most important thing was I had a really good relationship with my designer. We'd have a constant dialogue with each other about the latest trends in streetwear, what rappers were wearing. what music people were listening to, what trainers were like the new hype, and if so, what color the trainers were, and whether or not we need to be doing those colors, and watching music videos, studying like the way everyone was dressing, hip hop, R&B, like everything. Grime music was emerging as well. There was so many trends at the time, free running, for instance, guerrilla dance marketing. We just kind of like went into this whole segment of like people and just understood the way they shop, and basically anything just associated with the word hype. I think this is quite important to talk about. Is another thing that really boosted our brand image was when we signed Ashley Walters. So he's the lead star of Top Boy. I don't know if anyone has seen it on Netflix, but he was like our first ever brand ambassador, and it was like a personal thing for me. Like, I just loved the show. It got reignited by Drake, which was just very cool and exciting. It made me one step closer to him as well. So yeah, I mean, that was a big deal for us. That was around 2019 that we did that. And like following from that, we then had a lot more press. We had a lot of celebrity coverage. So that you've got H, wearing it over there. He wore it on his album cover, actually, that was plastered all over the tubes. And, we didn't even pay for that. He was just wearing our tracksuit. It was amazing. Heady One wore it for Complex. That's Meek Mill wearing it on stage. At a concert. Like, it was just a very exciting time for us, and that's kind of when the momentum really started to build. Since then, I've just basically continued to just design, release premium looking streetwear at an affordable price. Our main selling platforms right now are ASOS and Zalando, and if we have any surplus stock or leftover, we just kind of clear that stock to the likes of TK Maxx or other outlet stores. I just quite like this slide because it's just got like quite a cool image of my favorite shoots from over the years.
I think it really captures the essence of the brand. And just hearing you talk now, Rohil, I mean, back when you first had this idea, and I think I remember talking to you in one of the tutor rooms in High Holborn.
Yeah.
Idea. And at that time, the sort of words luxury and streetwear were just not said in the same sentence. So, I think it's impressive that you had this vision, and that you also had the confidence to pursue this vision. Because I'm sure your dad and your uncle probably didn't fully comprehend, streetwear and all the artists you're talking about and the music that you're talking about. And I think also, it's commendable, because even though you have the family business, actually what you've done is very unique. It's not what Whispering Smith has done before. I mean, having a pop-up in Topshop, is something that Whispering Smith has am I right? It's never done before. So.
Yeah, no, completely. Yeah, no, it was like a new thing, like having like proper branded product, being placed in like physical stores, and having an image behind the whole story. I work really hard on our Instagram, and I think it's probably quite a good idea now to even, just because you can on these images you can see there's like a few girls. It'll be worth probably now mentioning about how we got into women's wear, I think, because that kind of came out of nowhere, because up until this point we were all menswear, and it kind of morphed, which is quite an exciting time for us. It was 2019, it was during the shoot that we had in Paris. Like I said, at this point we were literally just menswear, but I'd noticed like on our tagged images on Instagram there was like a lot of girls wearing it. There's a lot of interest from influencers as well, and like it was quite a big emergence of influencers, but like girls wearing their boyfriends' hoodies, etc. So it's kind of a last minute decision on this shoot. Literally on the day I decided to get a girl model, and if you look at the image, if you study the pictures, there's actually they're all menswear clothes apart from the cycling shorts that we literally just picked up on the day. She's just wearing the guy's clothing, and I literally like with scissors like chopped some of the t-shirts and made them look cropped and like made them look like women's wear. And it, it's just, I was just kind of trialing the idea, but it really caught on positively, because like we then that season had like some big influencers wearing it, female influencers. This girl on the right, she walked for like Victoria's Secret She's quite a big model in New York. So like it kind of caught on quite nicely. So then I kind of had a consumer. So we did a few polls on Instagram at the time and just asked around. And it gave us a bit of confidence that actually, you know what, we should launch women's wear properly. So we did a soft launch with ASOS, which is what you've got in front of you, which funnily is basically just men's t-shirts, but shot on women. But the way they shot them look amazing. They're just like the kind of boyfriend t-shirt, oversized fit. It just really worked. And yeah, if you fast forward to where we are now, this is our new collection that we're doing that's launching in a couple of weeks. And we're doing 3 or 4 women's wear collections exclusively with ASOS a year now. And I think women's is eventually going to surpass men's. It's already getting close. So that's quite exciting.
Yeah, that's really, yeah. I mean, the fact that you just had the initiative to take a female model and then play around with the product and, you know, shoot and then just sort of see what the reaction was, and obviously with positive outcome, is commendable. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're just kind of, we're almost like we're supplying men's, we're supplying women's, but then we do like a bit of a unisex collection as well, which is like quite oversized and it's like genderless really. So it does, you know, it's working amazingly, but we're just kind of reacting to what's happening in the world.
So I suppose, as we teach at London College of Fashion, knowing who your customer is and then reacting accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's great that you have that agility to be able to react to customer demand. So not only and I suppose with a smaller business, perhaps you have more opportunity to be able to react in that way. So you spot a trend, you have an idea, and then, you know, you're in the enviable position that you're actually able to react to that trend or that idea or that that thing you've identified. So business going really well. However, pandemic, bit of an elephant.
Yeah.
So nearly a year ago, so March 2020, overnight almost, stores closed down, as in fashion stores, non-essential shopping, physical stores. Obviously ASOS and Zalando was still trading, but, you know, consumption shrunk almost overnight. So actually, what did that mean for you, Rohil, and Night Addict?
Yeah, so it was obviously a really tough time. You know, end of March 2020, we had a lot of cancellations from all of our wholesalers. You know, it's very uncertain for everyone, and we kind of had to bite our tongue because obviously everyone was going through it, and it wasn't exactly like personal. You know, despite all these cancellations that we had, we actually kept a lot of our orders with our factories. So a lot of the orders had already shipped, but stuff that was pre-shipped, we just let it ship basically. You know, it was like reductions of budgets. There was conversations I was having with buyers that were just horrible. You know, even talks of potentially dropping the brand as a whole. And yeah, consumer behavior. Oh, sorry, I've got a slide on this. Yeah. Consumer behavior changed a lot, but I think what benefited us really was that kind of change. So we kind of did a bit of we went through a very tough period, and like I said, you know, with our supply chain, we have a very strong relationships with our factories. You know, we made sure we didn't cancel. We honored all of our orders, so we had stock coming in, and on top of that, we just had constant conversations with the buyers, making sure that like they were also aware that the world might be changing and consumers sort of also adapting to their new life in lockdown. And so it was around April, mid-April, so only like 2-3 weeks into the pandemic, that everything kind of changed. I was grateful that we still had stock coming in, for example, because by mid-April, everyone was just used to the idea of being at home. You know, there was a huge like boost in sales online. The UK experienced some amazing weather. a lot of people sat at home shopping online, and, you know, buying tracksuits to wear around the house. And like all of our product was tracksuits, t-shirts, oversized, loose, like that's our whole image. So it was really good for us. I mean, it was May last year, we recorded our biggest month ever on our D2C website. Up until then, I mean, all of our sales had predominantly been wholesale, but, you know, it was the first time the consumers actually organically coming to us, choosing our site, you know, and we hadn't even increased our ad spend or anything like that. It was just completely organic. So, you know, we jumped on that opportunity. We sold through tons of styles, and, you know, we communicated with our consumers directly as well, which is just something that we've kind of always dreamed to do, coming from more of a wholesale startup.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So you went from kind of piles and piles of stock, limited cash flow, I imagine, because all your money was tied up in your stock, you know, deliberations on budgets and how possibly are you going to sort of be able to sort of sit on this stock and still sort of, you know, pursue with the business, to then the outcome being a huge spike in sales, but not only that, the opportunity to start selling direct to consumer, which was something that you'd thought about doing previously, but hadn't actually been able to explore that opportunity. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was a really, you know, it was a really tough time, generally speaking. You know, it wasn't ideal, but we just kind of took advantage of what was happening around us, because we couldn't help the fact that we had so many people coming onto our site. And yeah, it worked well for us.
What do you think have been your kind of key learnings that you may have sort of taken from, you know, your experience of trading in lockdown?
I hate Zoom. I just hate Zoom. But I think in fashion, it's so difficult because like we are such a like hands-on like industry. Like I need to feel a product. I need to know the weight of it. I need to like just see it. And it was so hard to like transfer like your day-to-day life into online. You know, we've coped. We've completely got our own systems now. We've got like weekly calls, and you know, we've got. We are still going into the office when we can, and there's, you know, shoots going on, etc. Stuff's still happening, but at the beginning it was really tough. Since then, we've kind of just adapted everything. You know, we shoot everything in house now. We have digital catalog basically. So that catalog I can just send. You know, I just generate a spreadsheet and I can just send it to a buyer straight away, and they can just view all the pictures, really clear, simple, price, retail price, etc. That's made things 1,000 times easier for us. And then also we've just kind of managed our expectations of the consumer as well. I think it's been really difficult, you know, for people to be sat at home, and we just kind of want to stay connected with all of our customers at the end of the day. So, you know, we're constantly on our Instagram, like replying to people, etc. And yeah, no, it's been a difficult time, but we've just kind of found the positives in all the sort of negatives.
Yeah, well, you've certainly, you know, some achieved, yeah, phenomenal kind of success. I mean, you've been trading for 5 years, and I think you shared with me that last year you generated £6.5 million in sales. So
yeah, so the units sold actually in the last 12 months is the same amount that we've sold 3 years prior, basically. So from 2017 to 2020, we'd sold about 400,000 units, and then in the last year, we've literally sold 400,000 units.
So the equivalent to 3 years trading.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, that's that's impressive.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot. We've had to like scale everything up, you know, hire more staff. Like it has been a lot, but yeah, no, it's all positive.
Yeah, gosh, I think even just having the ability to be able to scale that up and at such speed as well, in a lockdown, I'm sure that's been particularly challenging. So that's the past 5 years. So how do you see the next 5 years, Rohil?
Well, I kind of got two hats on my head. I've got the Whispering Smith hat and the Night Addict hat. With Whispering Smith, you know, I hope we're still pioneering, you know, we're supplying whichever e-tailer or retailer is thriving in 5 years' time. For Night Addict, again, it's just really, I hope that we can just continue to do what we're doing and just supply, you know, cutting edge streetwear at an affordable price. That's kind of my line that I always say with it, because that's the kind of aesthetic I'm going for. And internally, I think I'm a bit weird when it comes to projecting future goals, because I think the world, especially what we've learned from the last year, is so ever changing. Like, I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years, really. I can hope for certain things. You know, I internally dream and, you know, manifest of good things to happen. But I think outwardly, I'd probably play my cards quite close to my chest, and just hope for the best.
Yeah, it's hard to predict, isn't it? I think we try to teach that at London College of Fashion, that actually fashion predictions, you know, can be very challenging, and we talk about guesstimations because who knows what the future holds. And you know, my background's buying. We always used to talk about having a crystal ball to be able to see the future, but we don't have these things, so it's always really hard to know perhaps what the future holds. So just thinking about sort of your time at London College of Fashion, I know we've had conversations before, and actually when you were at London College of Fashion, that, you know, you felt that perhaps sometimes the focus was very much on high street fashion and luxury fashion brands, but perhaps there wasn't so much information shared on wholesaling and licensing and even the outlet side of the business, which is sort of an area that you find yourself in now. So yeah, sort of thinking about
so I'm glad you brought this up. I think best way to really talk about it is through my experience, really, of setting up our website, because that kind of encompasses all of this. It was in 2018 that I was things had started booming a bit more. That's when we had quite a few artists wearing it, etc. But wholesale was the predominant, you know, side of our business. But at the back of my head, I always had this, you know, idea, like I should have a D2C website. Not only is it an image for the brand, but like, you know, that's the future, margins are better, blah, blah, blah. So I kind of thought, you know, I'll test it out through a web store. So after a full year of trading, a few seasons under my belt, I built a Squarespace website. Literally took me a few hours, like just shot the product on a model, like did it all very like quickly. Launched in 2018 around August. And at the time, my main concerns were like web traffic and like, how am I going to get people online? And we kind of obviously launched in a bit of an upside down manner. So, you know, wholesale first, then direct to consumer. So how do I get people to visit our website, and how do I do it in a way that doesn't upset the likes of ASOS, because, you know, I'm competing with them, kind of. So it really was a tough project to nail down, because, you know, Night Addict had already become an off-price brand. And I guess for those of you who don't really know what I mean by off-price brand, the best way to describe it is most of the UK high street essentially has an outlet department within their business. So it's usually clearance, etc. In ASOS's case, it's a different department. But when we launched, it was off-price from the start. So the main point is that your clothing RRP isn't dictated by you, it's dictated by the seller. So, you know, next time you see a red pen through a garment's price, it's most likely pre-planned to have been sold for that price. So Bicester Village, for example, you know, a lot of the people who are in there, a lot of the brands are actually supplying product that's completely made for the outlet. Mm-hmm. That's not always the case, but that's maybe 50% of the stock that they have in outlets potentially. I think we did look at it at uni, actually. I remember we did a case study on Nike and how they've dominated every sector of the retail industry. But I think the scale of it is kind of extraordinary, and the scale of like outlet as an entire department and has an entire like industry is phenomenal. And that's something that I've really learned about, is like actually the power of selling at outlet, because as much as you might be not dictating your retail prices, the volume that you can sell through an outlet is phenomenal. I think quite often a lot of retailers actually have greater sales in their outlet departments than they do in their full price departments. Because let's face it, everyone kind of wants a bargain, you know, so that kind of is an amazing, an amazing kind of sector of our industry that I've really got to understand in the last few years. And I think it's, you know, I remember we did talk about it, I don't know when it was, a couple of years ago, and I was like, you know what, at university we don't really talk about this, because it's quite phenomenal, like how many people are actually working within this whole sector.
Yeah, and also like it gives a brand an opportunity, you know, your luxury brands that are selling at Bicester Village, an opportunity to tap into a new customer segment, and sort of grow their business that way, rather than sort of necessarily driving higher sales on the luxury sector. Okay, so I think do you want to talk us through your slides? This is linked to your.
Sorry, that was linked to what I just said, actually. Yeah, that was just to show where we began in 2018 with our online D2C website and where we are now. And that picture's like it goes double. It's quite a big warehouse that we've got now. So you know, direct to consumer is growing, and I'd like it to continue growing, and it's quite positive. But I think the way it's connected to the outlet thing is that, like, at the start it was quite a challenge to kind of understand where to price everything.
Yeah.
Because up until then, like, I was really just quite naive. I was so creative. It was all about the design and, you know, selling and blah blah blah, but like actually dictating a retail price and having like a fully, like, you know, an e-commerce store, you have to be aware of everything. So so I just had that slide ready to show where we've come.
So yeah, quite a difference from the top left image to what we've got on the right. And I think actually when you showed me these images the other day, actually the image on the right is that doesn't really give it justice. It's sort of 3-4 times bigger than that. Is that right? Your warehouse?
Yeah. And then we have a separate warehouse that has all our wholesale as well. So that's just direct to consumer.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the area that you hope to grow and expand. So I think that sort of leads me nicely into my next question, because obviously you've seen phenomenal growth during lockdown, and you indicated that, you know, you felt that was attributed by the fact that, you know, we're all at home, or most of us anyway, and, you know, we've sort of been looking for more kind of loungewear, streetwear product. Have you got any sort of insights? And I know you said you don't really like to look ahead, but, you know, any sort of insights and what you feel possibly is the future of streetwear, the streetwear market? You know, will we go back to a new? What will that look like?
Yeah, so I think, like, I think everyone, we just have to remain positive, hoping for an amazing boom in the economy, which is definitely going to happen. Specifically, obviously, the clothing industry. I really hope everything just gets back to normal. You know, it's very daunting, obviously, with what's happened and what's going on around us. But I think if we're referencing streetwear in particular, I think it'll definitely return to what it was, or a new version of it. What I kind of noticed during lockdown was that, like, all the hype brands were actually continually launching new products, but just in innovative ways, you know, like raffle systems through like online apps that you have to download for like 15 minutes, and then you have to press a button and like, you know, there's a lot of like cool innovation coming out of this. And yeah, I think you know, the fact that a lot of people have just been sat at home scrolling has just meant that a lot more influencers have kind of emerged out of the woodwork. So I think, yeah, there's going to be a lot more, I think, influencers and a lot more streetwear in the future. I think it's just going to continue going the way it's going.
Actually, influencers, you know, sort of a big, coin the expression influence. I mean, I suppose it's down to the influencers that you've been able to grow your business to consumer side of the business, I suppose.
Yeah, so I did this. I had the slide of some of my favorite shots, but I mean, it's just crazy how on a daily basis, you know, we have 5-10 tags on our Instagram of people wearing it. You know, when I first launched in 2017, it was nowhere near the monster that it is now, and that's only like 4 years ago. You know, previously all of our engagement and our KPIs were like really high when we would work with an influencer at that time. I think back then an influencer, there was only really one type of influencer back then, and that was just somebody with tons of followers. Now it's so segmented, it's quite, I don't know, saturated it could be. You know, it's evolved a lot. You know, there's legitimate celebrities, you know, there's like there's all these different categories of influencers: major influencer, mega influencer, mid-tier influencer, micro influencer. You know, it's hard to really know which one will fit your brand and kind of get the right engagement that you want, that, you know, results at the end of the day, results in sales. I think what I've found from my experience is that quite often the organic content actually works the best. We had a YouTuber a year ago wearing a hoodie in a video that he genuinely just bought from ASOS. And, you know, I was sat at home and my phone started pinging sales coming through, and I was like, what's this from? And then I somehow tracked it, because on our chat system we have online, it's people texting, where is this hoodie from? So we tracked it. It was just from this video. We literally, in 2 weeks, we sold 450 units of that hoodie, which was just like crazy for us on our own direct-to-consumer website. So that was all organic. Then I contacted him and I said, can we send you a hoodie? You know, we paid him, he wore the hoodie, it was a paid post, etc. We sold like 50 units in like 2 months of that hoodie from him. So like, it just honestly, like, it is an art understanding consumers. I think, you know, you really have to like capitalize on the influencer that's best for you. You have to study, understand their audience. You know, quite often female influencers are followed by men who just think they're hot, and vice versa. Like, you know, very famous male influencers might be followed by girls who think they're good looking or whatever. Like, you know, actually like get down to detail, get down to like the audience that you're seeking, the audience that you want, and, you know, the engagement of the person. I think, honestly, I think universities are going to start offering out influencer like marketing as a university degree, because it is really is a science.
Yeah, and I suppose, just the fact that a particular influencer's got loads of followers doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to generate, that's going to translate into sales. Because as you say, if you're a menswear brand and you're connecting with a male influencer, but predominantly they're followed by women, then potentially that might not have the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, the hot words at the minute is just TikTok and YouTube. Like everyone's just, I mean, TikTok's going crazy, but yeah, I mean, it's becoming like a monster, and it's scary a bit.
Yeah, and I suppose it's about all those various touch points. Actually, 2 weeks ago we had a talk, and it was very much about immersive marketing. So actually there's so many different touch points and ways that you can connect with your customer, but it's about being present in all those touch points and making sure those touch points are the right touch points and you're being presented in the way you want to be presented. Yeah, can be challenging. So Rohil, we have probably lots of students at the moment, some of whom are soon to graduate, and you know, it's been really refreshing to have your talk today, because there's so much positivity and to learn that, you know, there can be success made from lockdown. And in the press we see lots of sort of figures and statistics that suggest that, you know, the clothing market and consumption has shrunk, and, you know, customers you know, perhaps shying away from buying fashion because there hasn't been a need for them to buy fashion. So it's really refreshing to hear sort of a positive story. But I suppose, is there any sort of advice you might give to graduating students going out into the world of fashion, you know, who you know, are nervous about the
I think obviously
finding work?
I think obviously the fear, you know, I completely understand the fear right now. You know, it's daunting, you know, this huge big industry giants like Topshop falling down, like, you know, I mean, it's scary. The main thing I'd say is, you know, each and every student in such a powerful position, you know, at the end of the day, they are the consumers that people 5 years older than them are trying to target. I think you know better than anyone what the consumer wants. And, you know, whilst these big name giants are falling, you are all emerging out of your university degrees. And, you know, I came out of LCF and I probably did the most generic thing. I started a brand, but, you know, don't tunnel your vision, I guess. World is full of so many opportunities, and obviously things have changed a lot, but, you know, take advantage of those changes. You know, I'm 4 or 5 years down the line after graduating, but I can tell you, can share with you some of the jobs that my friends are in that were on my course. For example, one of them's working for one of the biggest ad agencies in New York and has just been headhunted by Kith, but all like content creation, etc. You know, another one of my friends was working for Selfridges clothing, but then materialized and now is working at head of content for Soho House. You know, another friend of mine is working at Apple in Silicon Valley, you know, working on the latest Apple Watch because it's an accessory. You know, I think there's just so much more scope. I think the main point to take away from it is that, you know, fashion isn't just clothing. You know, take your knowledge of consumers, take your knowledge of trends, apply it to future challenges, you know, mental health, sustainability, like all these big buzzwords at the minute. You know, you're designing your future, and, you know, you're designing your future, not just what we wear. I think it kind of all ties into my favorite quote by Nike, which is yesterday you said tomorrow, which is just get out there and do it, and, you know, be positive. I think there's so much good stuff to be coming.
And don't be nervous.
Yeah.
To
Like I
give
was
it a
before
go.
this. No, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like a leap of faith is just, you know, a leap of faith.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Rohil, your evidence in itself. You know, you were the only exiting pupil from Manchester Grammar that applied to London College of Fashion. You know, you took the initiative to actually have a go at making your designs up into product, and then sort of cheekily grabbing the buyer from ASOS and getting some feedback from them. So I suppose it's about, you know, having an idea, having the confidence to do it, and you know, just sort of grasping every opportunity that comes your way. Yeah. We've got a few questions actually, and if anyone else would like to ask Rohil any questions, we have some time for a Q&A. There's a question here from Manuela, sorry. Sorry if I've said your name wrong. So just wondering whether your experience that you gained at Liam Fung determines success of Night Addict, and whether or not that really sort of helped you with your vision and the launching of your brand.
I think it's a good question. So Liam Fung really, I mean, it was Global Brands Group, which was the company I was working with, and it was, you know, they're such a giant. They're a $40 billion company. This was just one sector of their clog. Working with them was amazing, but I think the idea was it was working within a fashion giant that really made me understand the scope of our industry. You know, I think you can get tunnel vision by thinking that clothing is just, fashion is just clothing, but, you know, there's so many clogs to the machine. So I think working at Liam Fung might not have been the success, but it was definitely the thing that opened up my eyes to the entire industry. You know, I think you have to really understand how much of an absolute giant we're dealing with here, you know, with as an industry, clothing.
And perhaps also working with Liam Fung, did it help you sort of apply maybe some of the things you've learned at London College of Fashion and realize, you know, perhaps, yeah, the scope of some of those kind of key business facts that you'd learned, perhaps? Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. So then we have another question. So yeah, very admirable what you've achieved in fashion. And And in fact, you mentioned earlier sustainability. So this is a question around sustainability. So the ethical and sustainable practices are just so important for businesses. You know, it was a buzzword, and now actually, you know, it's something that businesses need to act on. How are you sort of incorporating sort of sustainable processes across your business?
Yeah, so we basically, you know, our whole like vetting process to onboard a supplier is like quite stringent. So we have like big supplier manuals. We only deal with like SEDEX approved and tons of different certifications. So from a factory base, we buy in Bangladesh, India, Turkey, and China. But we have a huge process that we have to go through before each each onboarding happens, and then you've got obviously sustainable product. So there's one thing dealing with a very well represented factory, but then obviously if you don't have the sustainable product, it's not the same thing. So we now are sourcing organic cottons. We're dealing with recycled polyester, all in China. And I mean, it's just a constant evolution with our brand. We are finding that we are going green. This autumn, winter, we're doing an exclusive collection that I can't say crazy amounts on right now, but it's going to be a huge sustainable push. We're really looking to start producing in a sustainable way. So I mean, despite it being a buzzword right now, it's actually just benefiting every single aspect of our industry, and it's exciting.
I think what's particularly exciting about the world of fashion is it's constantly evolving and changing, and you're never going to grow tired, because there's always something new. There's always sort of a new approach you need to take, and you need to adapt and modify your business processes, your business model, in order to to remain competitive and to be a leader within the industry. Annabelle is just asking a question about organizing your warehousing when you're a startup. So
So I mean, at the start of when we first began doing direct to consumer, we outsourced everything. There were facilities that would offer you a weekly fee to keep your stock and to pick and pack it. I mean, it's a cost at the end of the day, but you kind of have to start somewhere. You will find that your margins aren't as tight if you were physically packing everything yourself, which was what we really did at the beginning. But then you kind of have to take kind of that risk, bite your tongue a bit, pay the fees, get some revenue under your neck, and then invest in a warehouse, etc. So I think to begin with, warehousing is scary because the costs can add up. You can get a cost if an order has 3 items in it. They'll charge you per item, sorry, just to ship it. It might be like 20p or 50p or whatever. So they are, you do have to consider those costs. But I think at the start, you just have to bite your tongue and get on with it.
And I suppose it's about best use of your resources. And actually, if outsourcing does mean that you can then scale up your business, I suppose, then that's...
Yeah, you can focus on the other stuff. I mean,
yeah.
At the end of the day, that's just one clog to your machine. And, spending the time, I did it. I pick and packed everything. I wrote little handwritten notes at the beginning as well, with every order we got, because I was so excited. But there comes a point where you have to really just focus on other aspects of things.
Yeah, and I suppose it's about recognizing your strengths. As much as you'd like to be involved with every single aspect, actually it's about taking a step back and recognizing what your strengths are and where you're sort of positioned within the business, and having that sort of opportunity to be able to sort of recognize where best to get others involved, or where you should be, I suppose, managing and taking control. There's a question here from Casey, what was your biggest challenge at the beginning of setting up Night Addict?
I think just the fear of like not doing things right. I think the fear of like I think I've always kind of had that fear anyway, just because of my like schooling and going against the grain a bit. Yeah, I mean, fear really is probably the main thing. That was the challenge. But like in terms of like what people were wearing and how the world was like evolving, I kind of knew that there was a market for it. Yeah, I think you just have to kind of bite your tongue again and just kind of wade through it. You know, if fear is stopping you, then, you know, it's a hurdle you just have to break through. Basically, it's a wall, you just have to bang through it, and once you're on the other side, you just, you know, going to feel amazing for it.
Yeah, but it's quite liberating. The fear of failing. I mean, I'm sure everyone who goes out and sets up their own business has that fear, and sometimes you fail, but then you learn from that, and then it can lead on to something else. So if you look at a lot of business models, often they've started with one idea and then it's evolved and morphed into something else that has been a success. So just a question here on the kind of consumer behavior, and what have you noticed? So there's obviously a lot in the press about the customer and change in behavior during lockdown. And during the pandemic, what have you seen as yourself as the main shift in consumer behavior, would you say?
Well, I mean, online obviously has really become like the most, you know, the thing that everyone relies on the most. Anything online, anything digital has just boomed. So in terms of consumer behaviors, you've got obviously home workouts, for example, you know, the rise of Peloton, for example, that's just been incredible. Yeah. You've got delivery systems, you know, Deliveroo and Uber Eats and all these companies. It's kind of just consumer behavior. I suppose the main change really has been, it's kind of been the inevitable. It was something that we always knew that was going to happen, which was that everyone's going to digitalize their life. But it's kind of, I think last year just like accelerated that process. So I think just being aware of that in itself, and just studying consumer behavior is probably what's going to get you onto the next trend.
Yeah. So yeah, learning from what you see and what you witness, and then yeah, I suppose gaining insights into the tomorrow that we were talking about. Just a further question on sustainability. So what do you feel, Rohil, can street brands do to drive meaningful sort of short or long-term change as concerns the sort of, yeah, maybe, I don't know, yeah, the kind of, and have a sort of short or long-term impact on the environment?
I think I kind of touched upon it before. You know, having a direct relationship with your consumer, I think, is like really, really important with this, because you know, obviously with us being like, I'd say 85 to 90% wholesale, it's only our brand partners like ASOS and Zalando who are technically selling and directly to our consumers. But you know, if we had the data and the capabilities of getting hold of every single consumer that we sell to, you know, I think just communicating with them about the fabrics we use, telling a brand story, this is who we are, this is where we source, you know, this is, you know, the factory guy that this is the guy from the factory that I deal with like every day. I think generally speaking, consumers want to know more and more about brands, sustainability. They want to know about the story, the background, where things are being made, which is understandable. But I think as a long-term goal, it's something that we're always working on as well internally. You know, we have some video content that we're going to be putting on our website soon, you know, to get that kind of message across. So yeah, I think that's, I mean, there's a brand Pangaya, for example, that they donate, I think they donate they plant a tree for every purchase, which I think is quite an innovative way of sustainability. But like this, you know, there's a lot of initiatives like that, you know, charitable causes, etc. So yeah, I think streetwear as a whole is evolving into that.
And I think you summed it up quite nicely before, as in sustainability is such a huge topic, and the word sustainability, you know, encompasses so many different aspects. And I suppose as a business, you do what you can, and you know, you have your sustainability goals and you have your short-term plan and your long-term plan, but you know, sometimes it takes time to implement those sustainability processes and systems, but you know, small steps over time will hopefully lead to greater sustainability and greater sort of CSR practice. Yeah. So just one final question, but I think this is more for me actually. So we have someone asking about the recording. So the recording from today will be shared with you via your Eventbrite sign up. And then those students that are London College of Fashion students who are attending today, the recording will be available through the university, and in time will be available on the Fashion Business School webpage. So yeah, just leaves me, Rohil, to say thank you very much for giving up your time today. I really appreciate.
Thank you.
You know, it's not just the hour now, but actually the conversations we've had over the past, you know, few months, just sort of shaping out, you know, the discussions we were going to have today. Really appreciate your time and sharing your experience, and hopefully, yeah, giving students a sort of positive lift at a time that can feel quite challenging for some of them. Yeah, thank you to all of you for attending today. We do have another Fashion Means Business Fashion Talk planned in 2 weeks' time, where Fashion Revolution is going to be joining us. So Rohil, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah.
Good luck. Good luck with Night Addict and Whispering Smith. Lovely to see you.
Thank you. Yeah. Speak to you soon. Take care.
Take
Thanks,
care.
guys.
See you.